Ron Hubbard's dalliance with celebrities started very early on. He, in Los Angeles in 1950, he audited Aldous Huxley, who was quite famous. And Huxley's biographer says that Sarah brought a huge garish box of chocolates, which was not appreciated. And he sat there with Hubbard trying to find an engram. And they, on they went and on they went. And sadly, he was not able to find one. So that was the first failed case with a celebrity. Gloria Swanson, who had around that time had played in Sunset Boulevard as Norma Desmond, which is still one of the greatest films ever made. She was an ardent Dianeticist for a brief time. He, of course, got his friend, acquaintance, A. Van Vogt, who became a committed Dianeticist to the extent that he never wrote another story, which is awful. I had some quite interesting exchanges with Van Vogt in the 80s, and I said to him, why did you write this thing about Battlefield Earth being a great book? Because it isn't. And he said, I didn't read it. He's an old friend. But Hubbard got, it's obviously worked. We've got Tom Cruise and John Travolta and a variety of other assorted suspects who definitely have tremendously promoted Scientology. And it's this curious idea that because somebody who's a movie actor, somebody who's a movie actor believes this stuff, we ought to do it, which is, it says an awful thing about human beings. I mean, you look at the state of most movie actors, why would you do what they do? So let's start with Nancy.
Okay.
Ventriloquism as well. Tell us about your involvement with Yvonne and the creation of the Celebrity Center.
My first introduction to the Celebrity Centers was when I was working at the FOLO in New York, which managed all the East Coast of America. So we had a Celebrity Center in New York, and we had a Celebrity Center in Toronto. And I was working also with the LRH personal PROs. They were the people, they were his personal PRs, but they also worked with individual celebrities on getting them trained on how to talk to the press and various things and what they should and shouldn't say about Scientology and practice with them. When I got to INT management, it was, of course, the International Celebrity Centers, which was a big force in Mexico, Paris, and it was very, very different to manage the orgs versus managing celebrity centers. And there was a little bit of a, those people at Celebrity Center are dilettantes. They aren't real Sea Org members because they hang out with the celebrities.
By the way, this is Ron Hubbard's definition of the word dilettante.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which means amateur, which is not what the word actually means.
Okay.
It means somebody who's dedicated to something and loves something.
Oh, he's the opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I never knew that.
Propaganda by redefinition of words.
Yes.
Thank you for catching that.
It's okay.
But celebrities were always courted because of their potential with the press and kept in a very kind of a special place. So I worked internationally, but they would all come down to FLAG, the various different celebrities. And I worked with Liz Gablehouse, who's how I met with Spanky, who was working at Celebrity Center with Yvonne at that time. And people would come in, these celebrities or artists or whatever, would come to FLAG, and at that time we'd interview with them, or Lizzie would do some training or brainstorming or whatnot. I then became the president of Celebrity Center from 80 to 82, and then after I left the Sea Org, I continued as a field staff member with various different celebrities.
And field staff member would, for those not inclined, is basically a recruiter. It's somebody who handles somebody to make sure they keep doing Scientology.
And they get paid a 15% commission.
Not bad.
Not bad. The one thing that I just wanted to share is the attitude towards celebrities was, yes, they're valuable. We have a place for them and a use for them. I think Yvonne cared a lot more than the rest of Scientology about their artistic dreams and where they really wanted to go. And her centers became havens for artistic expression. But the Sea Org itself went through these transitions, and there was never really this great support from regular management for the artsy-fartsy crowd over at the celebrity centers. And there came a point a few years later, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you worked with Yvonne, but what I read in the data files is that she treated celebrities as people.
Oh, absolutely.
And if they were like members of the group, and if they were in a lower condition, they painted a wall just in front of everybody. It wasn't separate. It wasn't, backwards. They were right in there, and then many of them felt dedicated, and the most dedicated were the Sea Org members. So I don't know if it was Yvonne or Lizzie who put together an honorary Sea Org member category. So celebrities who desired to have that kind of a commitment could become honorary Sea Org members and be used even more in their outside world. And that changed with Bill Franks in about '82. That's when I first noticed the change. And I also talked with a messenger who was on the other side, who we've pretty much narrowed it down to there was a major shift. In that Sea Org members weren't so important as the celebrities. It was like a flip-flop. And it came to its most fruition when David Miscavige gave Tom Cruise the Personal Medal of Freedom for the world, and he said, to the most dedicated Scientologist in the world.
And perhaps the craziest.
And perhaps the craziest. But in that moment, as an ex-member, and as having been a Sea Org, I'm like, what? I mean, these people are in there working 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, and they're dedicated, and here he is giving this thing to this rich man who drives around on motorcycles and jumps from tall buildings, And I did talk to a few ex-members who also felt the same, even though they weren't members and we didn't care anymore, but it was just he dissed us. He dissed all the Sea Org in favor of Tom Cruise. And that was felt by the Sea Org members at that time, because I've since talked to some of them as they've left. I continued with some into the celebrity world, even after I got out. And I was contacted by a person who gave me this necklace, and I really care for him and I worry for him. I worry for his life. But he was part of a big family of celebrities. And what they were doing now, this is more recent. I don't know if you want to go to Spanky and come back, but what they were doing now is they were having these people pay thousands of dollars every day to have 24/7, to have a handler with them, to help them with Scientology, to make sure they were applying it. Brush off that body thing. I don't want to give too many details about this person, but he one night, he was already out exploring, and he was out in his head and didn't want them to know. He was afraid. What's he going to do? They have all the money. He'd be penniless out on the street. One night, he had a computer that he opened with his fingerprint. And one night, he woke up to his personal handler that he paid to have, with his computer in his hand, picking this person's thumb up to get into his computer. And if you just take that a little bit wider, Katie Holmes is on the computer with her special handler. And she starts to go, oh, there's this anti-Scientology website. How easy is it for that handler to go, oh, Katie, we have to go. We have a meeting with Tom. And she doesn't even know her information. As Tori would say, it's the real Truman Show. They are controlled. And so what I'm trying to say is, it's not good for them either. And a lot of them are trapped in there now.
Yep. Spanky.
Hi. I don't know exactly what you wanted me to talk about.
Well, tell us who you are.
Okay, my name is Spanky Taylor. Taylor. My real name is Silvia Yvonne Teresa Piñon Taylor, but I've been called Spanky since I was a young girl, 13 years old. And I got involved with Santa Clara Mission, but was already working doing concert promotions through these guys that I knew who joined the Sea Org in the 60s as honorary Sea Org, maybe full-on Sea Org members. I saw the flag order when they joined the Sea Org. And that was Robbie Levin and Al Rabisi and Jeff Levin. And I was so in awe of them and quite impressionable and just followed their lead and got involved. I met Yvonne. She blew me away. I thought she was so kind and loving, and then realized when I got involved that celebrities were going to be the endorsement arm for the organization. So it's like Coca-Cola having a spokesperson, or Chanel. You know, they have this image that goes along with it. So I was originally at Axion's Productions, which was a promotional production arm connected to Celebrity Center that would do large concert tours with various artists, and then went to CCLA and worked with Yvonne as her PR, and she was one of LRH's PRs. So
what year was that?
That was, and I went to her in '73.
Okay.
I had already been working. Yvonne sent me, before I worked directly with her, she sent me here to Toronto to work with a group called Edward Bear. They had a hit record. I arranged their H-1 visa to the US, and so they could come in on an H-1, which was a very prestigious visa for VIPs. And they did American Bandstand and Midnight Special and various TV shows at that time. So the head guy in the band was asked by Yvonne, "Oh, darling, what would you like? Is there anything we could do for you?" And he said, "I'd like Spanky." So next thing I know, I'm at a staff meeting and Yvonne announces Spanky's going to be going to Toronto to help Larry and his band with dissemination. And off I went. And I came here to Toronto, and I was here living for a year. At that time, Celebrity Center was set up by a person who remains one of my best friends, Brigitte Manning, and Jack Manning, her husband at that time. And we did lots of artsy events and artsy-fartsy, as Nancy would say. But then when I finished with that, we had done, I had very successful numbers, and we had like 187 column inches on LRH and Scientology, and countless hours of radio and TV shows that I had Larry and the band do talking about LRH and Scientology that I would set up. And then at that time when we were on tour, I called Nan, thinking she was a mission holder, and wanted to say, "Look, the band's here, we're on tour, if you'd like to utilize them to help with dissemination." And she said, "Oh no, honey, I'm not a member, and let me tell you what happened to me." And she proceeds to tell me the story that I find horrifying and completely implausible. So I go back, I call Fred Hare and said, "I just spoke to a woman, and I think she's quite mad. I mean, she said these things about Scientology could possibly do." He said, "Oh, you're absolutely right. She's not legitimate." So I thought, oh my God, this poor woman. She claims that she was like tortured by these people, but very kind. And he said, "Well," but I was so grateful because even though you shove things under the mental carpet, I still thought, but there was this person, and she seemed quite sincere in her lunacy. No, I was like, oh my God. But it stuck with me, and I always remembered, and so I was very thrilled to get to meet her in person on this visit. And so anyway, when I finished that project with Larry and the band, because we toured all over Canada, and various places in the United States. We'd gone to Boston. Yep. Nancy was there, and Bill Franks was running the Org on a Mission, and a number of notables were there at that time of crazy Scientology execs. But then I was assigned to be with Yvonne when I got back, because I had good numbers here in Canada. So Diana wanted me with Yvonne, so I was happy to do that. And just had wonderful days with her, and she was very kind, and she was she did care about the celebrities and believed in them almost more than they believed in themselves in many cases. And she also, Yvonne was unique in that she believed you could love someone to a cognition, to a realization about life. She would say to me, "Oh, darling, you know, we haven't seen Ron Strauss. Let's take him to lunch." And I'd say, "Oh, sir, we can't. He's a declared SP." "Oh, darling, it doesn't matter. We have to reach out to him because if he ever wants to come back, there has to be somebody that he can reach out to." Okay, so I'd call him and he'd be shocked, or whoever it was, and we'd have lunch. We'd take him to lunch, and Yvonne would just love them. And it was so bizarre to me because she was raised in the same time period as Jane Kember. And I think there's a very famous picture of she and Jane doing TRs and Alaric standing over them in the course room. And I thought, how could these women be so the same and yet so completely the antithesis of one another? That Jane sees an SP and thinks, let's take him to the basement and string him up out of the balls until he rots because he's an SP. And Yvonne would say, well, let's put him in the basement and every day take him chocolates and try to coax him to cognition, because that was Yvonne. That was just the incredible difference in the two of them. And she loved Johnny, and she really took care of the celebrities, and I was given great freedom. You know, I'd say, "Oh, sir, I'm going to go have dinner with so-and-so tonight," or "I'm going to Paul McCartney's birthday party." "Go, darling, go, and, you know, just bring somebody good back." So when I went to Paul McCartney's party, actually, I recruited Larry Anderson, who stayed in 30 Years Beyond Me, but he was a darling guy, and a whole bunch of people. And we had
He's out now.
Yeah, he's out now, I'm grateful to say. And you know, went and got Priscilla Presley and brought her in because actually Nancy was teasing me recently because John Travolta was so enthusiastic and so great, but would read things and go off like half-cocked and tell people, "Oh, you should do Scientology, and you know you have little degraded beings on the back of your neck," and it's like ridiculous things. So finally I said, "John, no. All you're allowed to do is tell them what it's done for you. When someone asks you about it, you say, 'Well, I can tell you what it's done for me,' and then you turn them over to me, and then I will help them with
Did you tell them about the little degraded?
Yes, I will. Pardon me?
Did you then tell them about the little degraded?
No.
Is that
He
your
was
job?
reading books, and like history of man, but he'd get stuff all mixed up. And he was very enthusiastic follower and really anxious to tell people about it, which he did a terrible job of. So I said, "You are not to talk about it." And then recently,
The
what
HBO
happened-
movie, your HBO movie came out, and his response was so, as far as all the celebrities, was so different. You know, it was, "Well, I just know it's been great for me," and blah, blah, blah. You know, and Spanky goes, "That's what I taught him to do."
That's right. He's not allowed to say anything beyond that. So, and he still sticks to that, and I'm grateful. She said, "Oh, like a good little soldier." He just says, "All I can tell you is what it's done for me." And it's good. It's a good thing. But it was good because when Priscilla Presley wanted to know about it, she stopped in a restaurant, and he said, "Well, I can tell you what it's done for me, but, you know, my closest friend and confidant, Spanky, will spend time with you and explain everything." She said, "Okay." So then you know, it brought me into the fold with her. And so I usually took care of those things for him, or kind of had to untangle the messes that would be made. But he was so kind and enthusiastic, like extraordinary. So it saddens me that he's there, but I guess we all have our path, and I'm confident that he will, at some point, you know, the light will turn on for him. And yeah, and
Well, I think the light did turn on for him in 1982. He was interviewed by Rolling Stone and
Yes.
cast a lot of light on it.
Yes.
In fact, I had talked with somebody who had been auditing him, and he one day in an auditing session, he climbed out of the window to escape. And then he went to the press and said, "These terrible people have taken Scientology over." And then suddenly,
He's quiet again.
quiet again. And then one person after another was saying, "I had sex with John Travolta," or there was a terrible story from his chauffeur who said he liked to find a newlywed couple and seduce the man.
yes.
Whether it doesn't seem likely, because from people I've talked to that know him, they say the same thing that you do. Paul Haggis says the same thing. He's a lovely guy. He's
a lovely
sweetheart.
guy. I've had a lot of journalists come to me that want to speak to me about Johnny, particularly sexuality, which I don't think is anybody's business before he puts it at night. So, it's like a moot point for me. I don't understand why we go there.
Consenting adults.
Yeah, they will obviously, if the day ever comes, they can say whatever they say about him. But I think he's a good human being, and I have high regard for him still. I mean, with the exception of this, which I still have high regard for him because I don't know what keeps him there, but I have to trust that he'll find his way.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Yvonne she was really instrumental in trying to keep the celebrity and art dream alive for various people.
Yeah.
And when Nancy was a COCC, oh my God, we had such fun.
She'd come pick me up because she was not in the Sea Org then.
Yeah, I left the Sea Org.
And it was the same thing as when she was there. I'm going to this party, I'm going to this whatever, and Spanky had the car, this Pinto, okay? It was, but to me it was like a chariot. And we would go to all these different celebrities.
We went to golf tournaments. There was 5 living presidents at this golf tournament that we went to with one of my clients at the time. And I took her all over, and we had a good time.
We
but
did.
Mostly to get her out of the org.
Which I was very grateful for. Very grateful for.
There's a woman called Laurie Taverner who gave testimony at the Clearwater hearings. And I was intrigued by this when I read it. It was not long after I'd left. That she said that people would come to her. She was an OT5 NOTS, or New Era Dianetics for OTs auditor. And one day she just walked out and went back from Florida to Los Angeles and dropped out. She just didn't want to do it anymore. She decided she'd had it. And people would come to her and they'd say, but I got into Scientology because I wanted to be like you. And she had to say, I've always been this way. I've always been an ebullient, cheerful person. And Yvonne Yench, Yvonne Gillum, who we're talking about, I've talked to so many people over the years, that she was this sort of magnetic personality and attracted many people in. But the fact of the matter is that it wasn't that Ron Hubbard came and found her and turned her into this glowing human being.
Absolutely.
It's the way she was. And it's worth saying that the majority of Scientologists, the vast majority of Scientologists, with the possible exception of David Miscavige, are genuine people who believe they're doing good.
You're absolutely right.
And so you often see as people come out, they want to get in some kind of warfare. I had a friend, Collis Cornier, who's a filmmaker who was 10 years in the Sea Org. And he told me that when he was on the RPF at Flag, dressed in black, not allowed to talk to anybody, living off table scraps, being yelled at, berated, destroyed and humiliated, there were protesters with placards. And one of them spat at him. And this kind of attitude of hatefulness is thing that people say, oh, how's your battle with Scientology, your war with Scientology going? I'm not in a war with anybody. It's very important to take the perspective. And when people come to me and say, how can I help you destroy these Scientologists? I'm absolutely, from the first moment to now, I wish to help these people. And to have any other perspective is basically saying either, I was an asshole to begin with and I still am, or, I'm not healed, I'm not over what happened to me. And so, it's that. It's how do we help people? And realizing that these people, and they become fervent. Let's mention Mark Rathbun again. They become fervent because they feel they have a mission. They feel that they're achieving something positive by what they're doing. Until one day they can hopefully sit down and look in the mirror and go, and hopefully John Travolta, Tom Cruise, whoever, can sit and look in the mirror and go, what have I actually done? What have I really achieved? Am I clear? Am I OT? Do I have these wonderful powers? And realize the harm that's actually been all around. But it's very important to me, that sense that the people are not doing this because they wish to hurt the critics and the ex-Scientologists. They're doing it because they wish to save the planet.
Yes, absolutely. And Yvonne, as an aside, so many people I know that knew Yvonne got involved or more deeply involved because of Yvonne and thought they wanted to emulate somebody like her because she was such a good person and she cared so much about others. And unfortunately, her affinity was misdirected to L. Ron Hubbard, that she really trusted him, so much so that she left her children with him. And it's sad. And as wonderful a senior as she was, and a friend, Hannah Eltringham, she told me about Hannah. Hannah said, you know, my best girlfriend's coming. I said, she is. We were going through a hard time at that time. She had been ill, and we were at the PR organ. Kind of funds were cut off, and she felt her lines to LRH, her communication to LRH was being severed. And she said, my best friend is coming. Oh, sir, I didn't know you had a best friend. Who's that? She said, oh, Hannah. And Hannah came, and she was like an island at a very dark time for us. So, and she was great, and I loved her, and didn't see her again until years later after I had been out and in therapy, and my therapist said, we want to arrange an intervention for you. And in walks Hannah, which was just fabulous. And she and Jerry helped me so much. And I then met Steve through her and Jerry, and got a lot of education in the area. But there are people that we would always term Rontrons, not that I want to be one of those objectifying people like they are. But I think even so, more so, Yvonne-trons I knew, because I always say we were kind of like in the Pollyanna era of the Sea Org. People weren't hit or yelled at or anything at that time. I mean, I guess Yvonne could get harsh with people, but not in my experience.
You didn't want her to be upset in the least little bit.
Yeah, and she was so kind. And I'd do the rounds with her in the morning, and she'd go all the crew, and she'd say, how are you, darling? Oh, great. Well, what could be better? And they'd say, oh, sir, I wish I had more course. Spanky, could you make a note of that and make sure that Chris gets a little more study time, or whatever it was. She really asked every crew member what could be better for them and tried to deliver that for them. She was very kind.
And at International Management, they viewed the celebrity centers, like I said, as artsy-fartsy. But Yvonne was considered theedy-weedy, which I don't know if that's a real term, is it?
It's Pollyanna.
It is a Hubbard term.
It's a Hubbard term. It's not like a Pollyanna, like
it's not a compliment.
There you go. It is not a compliment. And
Effete.
It's Scientology's for you're lame and terrible and you're not existing in reality.
exactly.
But with more swear words added in.
And see, that's why Celebrity Center and Yvonne was always cared for by the LRH personal PROs and CS6, who was Diana Hubbard at that time. And those were the strong women that protected Yvonne and what she was doing. Because management, they're not real Sea Org members, or they're not whatever, you know, and that was...
These two lucked out. By the time I got to Celebrity Center in 1995, when I joined, when I was 18, I'm Nora Crest, for those of you who don't know, on the Bunker Basketball Jane, so if you guys are here. By the time I joined, I was born into Scientology, so my view of all of the orgs was, you know, I had a viewpoint of all of them. I had been recruited by every org that existed, and I'm a huge movie buff. The Academy Awards are a national holiday in my household. So I felt a kinship to Celebrity Center, even though I didn't really know any celebrities. My aunt was considered a celebrity, Harriet Schock, so I was like, oh, I sort of belong here. You know, she wrote, you know, some Helen Reddy songs in the 70s and did the, you know, if anybody watched Pippi Longstocking, you got that song stuck in your head because of her. But when I joined, it was post-Yvonne. She had passed away, and there were a handful of Sea Org members that had been there still during the Yvonne years that sort of carried this torch for her. And then what had happened a few years before I joined, the RPF had essentially gotten cleaned out. They needed to man up Celebrity Center and the Manor, which were two different organizations, the hotel and Celebrity Center. And they went to the PAC RPF, and they lined up the whole RPF, and they said, what are your skills, what are your skills, what are your skills? Now, the man who had audited me on my Clear Certainty rundown and declared me a last lifetime clear at the age of 14, Phil Christodoulou, he said, well, I'm an auditor. And they said, but weren't you chef trained in England? Didn't you do professional chef training? And he said, well, that was like, I don't know, 20 years ago. Great, you're now the chief chef of the Manor. They took a trained auditor, put him in the manor, which was the lower organization, in the galley. So he was cooking food for the restaurant and occasionally for the crew, but mostly for the restaurant. So they could say they had a cordon bleu trained chef. Now he's from the cordon bleu, which he didn't attend. Yeah, but he had been to Europe apparently.
Same thing.
So, same difference. So they went down the line like that and they manned it up. So by the time I got there, these people had settled into their posts, but they literally had taken people who probably a year or so earlier had been put into the RPF and, screamed at and yelled at, and I love that you guys never got yelled at, but that was not the case. Yvonne was not there, and it was not a powerful women's circle. We had Dave Pettit as our CEO, who had been recruited from the Orange County org. He had made Orange County St. Hill size, and they recruited him very heavily for over a year, and finally, only after agreeing to let his wife kind of sort of be an honorary Sea Org member because she was not qualified, he agreed to be the CEO and make Celebrity Center St. Hill size. And they had achieved that 2 years earlier, in '93, I think the same year that the big IRS thing happened, CC was St. Hill size. Our other claim to fame was, and I'm not gonna get super into the financial structure, but all of these orgs that are purchased, it's the greatest Ponzi scheme in the whole world, and Chris could do a whole thing on that. But all of the orgs, before they started regging all of the public people to pay for the orgs, were purchased by international management, and then as the organization, you were paying rent, you were paying your mortgage back so that the building you were in, even though you're the Sea Org and you're still tithing and all this stuff, you had to pay a mortgage. And we were the only org on the planet who we saved and saved and saved secretly, and Celebrity Center paid off their building. So we were the only org on the planet that owned our own building, so we could do whatever we wanted. And we started this other reserve, and that's how they bought the other all the birthing buildings that Celebrity Centers bought, they bought with their own hard-earned money. But when I got there, it was very hard to become a member of the Sea Org at Celebrity Center. It wasn't just like, yay, I love artists, I'm fun, yay. The first thing they do is they sit you down in some terrible recruitment office, and you have this huge survey that is basically a variation on the question of, are you, I'm gonna speak with terrible language for a moment, but are you a star fucker? Are you here to get famous? Are you in any way, shape, or form gonna use connections that you make here to further your own career? Are you some member of the media? Do you have other intentions? So you have to and they're not on the meter initially. So you're just like, no, of course, what? No. But they wanna make sure that you're there to be dedicated to the Sea Org and not to somehow meet John Travolta in the hallway and be like, oh, maybe you need someone like me for your movie, So they wanna make sure you're not gonna do that. Then you do the Estates Project for us. I did it in 6 days. It really wasn't that big a deal. I had already gone through, the basic courses. So, the most annoying thing in that is you have to listen to L. Ron Hubbard talking about the things, and you're like, oh, wow, this is a lot, and why are we talking about a ship? I'm in Celebrity Center, I'm in a building, and why do I have to know port and starboard, and what's happening? And it's very confusing, but you get through that. And then you have to have a massive sec check in order to be in.
There might be some people in the room who don't know what a massive sec
Okay,
check
a
is.
security check is when they put you on the electropsychometer, TM.
Lie detector.
And it's the little lie detector, and they interrogate you for hours, and they go through that initial checklist that you used your own integrity to answer, and then they really dig in, and they want to know what crimes you have, and all of your sordid sex details. Yeah, and one of the major out-qualifications for Celebrity Center is you cannot have any sort of homosexual inclinations or past at all.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's a qualification. This is. They were there in the 70s when it was like party, 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 and it was not a party anymore in the 90s. I can tell you. Yeah, my mom got into Scientology in the 70s too, where she told me, part of the great part about being in Scientology in the 70s were the parties that happened every Friday and Saturday night, which did not happen. But by the time I got there, the other thing that had happened is obviously there were still John and Tom, and you had Juliette Lewis, and you had basically these huge stars. And then you had like I say to people, they're like, oh, who did you meet? Who did you know? Like, I saw Tom and John and stuff, but really, honestly, I saw more celebrities across the street at Gelson's than I ever did at Celebrity Center, because it's right at the bottom of the Hollywood Hills, and I saw Brad Pitt, Eric Stoltz, all these guys that would just be shopping there, and you'd be like, hi, how are you? You know, I work over there, come on over. And they were like, no, thank you. So that was always fun, too. But what had happened at that time is the celebrity sort of like the Yvonne let's love everybody fest was not the case. And the way Sea Org members viewed celebrities is that they were assholes. They were not committed really because they weren't going to join the Sea Org. They were just going to talk about Scientology, and that wasn't as important as what we were doing as Sea Org members. We were the most important people, and we were putting up, oh God, Jason Begay, let me call this asshole. Come on in, get in here, let's get something going. And I would harass these guys, and I thought of them as like children who wouldn't come in on it. L. Ron Hubbard has everything, he has rules for everything. You think some eyelashes, he has a rule for that. And he had very strict rules in terms of scheduling students and people coming in for counseling services. And the celebrities could do whatever they wanted. They had their own special course room, and they would come, oh, I can't come at noon when the course starts. I think I'll come in at 1:37. And you'd just be like, oh, okay. And certain people like John and Tom, whatever they wanted, you did it.
And truly, in
It
our
didn't-
day, they
yeah.
were just like rank and file. They went to course
Yeah.
on time.
See, that's the
Actually,
difference.
I saw this Oscar-winning director have to scrub the car park with a brush because he was in
God.
lower condition.
That would never happen. That would never, the only thing that I ever saw happen with a celebrity that would be similar to that is a celebrity had, I'm not gonna mention who it was, but had gotten in trouble publicly, and they told this person, not even publicly, some Inquirer story ran about them. And as a result of this story, they were pulled into the president's office and told, you're no longer a celebrity. You are banished from the celebrity courtroom. Now, mind you, this person was on one of the number-ranked television shows in the world at the time, star of the television show. And they said, they took this person out of a film they were in, erased them from the film, and said, you're gonna have to do lower conditions, like several times through in order to earn your status back as a celebrity. And I ended up working with this person to help them through their problem, because they weren't even, I was a word clearer, I was just the lowly person, which for those of you who don't know, it's a person who sits in the courtroom and opens up dictionaries for people and says, here's the word that you don't understand, why don't we talk about the definition of this word? I mean, it's really kind of,
Quick question. Did they also have connection with the director of this film? How did they get him eliminated from the film?
No, from a Scientology film. I'm sorry, let me
okay,
make that clear. From a Scientology, no, they didn't.
What?
That would
How
be,
do you do
they
that?
called up Warner Brothers. No, that didn't happen. They removed them from a Scientology film. I should have been clear with that. Yeah, that would be ridiculous. But that was the kind of thing that was hammered into us as Sea Org members there, that we were the salvation of man, and we were using the celebrities to forward our purpose. They were not our friends. We were not allowed to fraternize with them. If we did, it's hard not to form attachments with people like that, because they're huge personalities, especially John Travolta, as Spanky became very good friends with him. I worked with him once, and all I can say is the nicest person I've ever met in person. He is that way. He's very magnetic, and as most of the stars are. Tom Cruise is the same way. He's very magnetic. When you speak to him and you're looking into his eyes, and of course, as a girl who grew up in the 80s, all you can think of is that scene in Top Gun, and you're like, you're very starstruck and things happen, but you get very jaded as time goes on there, because as Yvonne treated them like people, like, you did something bad, go handle it, go be like a regular person. We thought of them as people in the same way that we thought of the checker at Gelson's across the street as people. They were not equal to us. They were lower than us. And that is how really most people in the Sea Org today, probably not back in this day, but when you get into the Sea Org, it is crammed into your head over and over and over that you are the elite of planet Earth. You are the only salvation of planet Earth. And everyone who has not signed that billion-year contract, who isn't working, 12 to 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, is a piece of crap. And that's just the way it is. So it was a weird dichotomy because you'd have to be kind of fake to the celebrities, or especially the minor celebrities, which most people think that you're just bumping into John Travolta and Tom Cruise all the time, which is not true. 99% of the people there are
They desire careers in entertainment.
they're up and that's right. They're up and coming. There's somebody who went on an audition last Tuesday, and meanwhile they're working at the Cheesecake Factory scrubbing plates. So they're a celebrity. Per the definition of celebrity, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it memorized anymore, but a celebrity is anyone who's important in their field, their entourage, family, friends, and associates.
Politics,
So
government,
politics,
government, entertainment, sports.
And
That's
politics.
right
over
there it is.
there. It's right
There
there.
it is. That's the definition. And the Celebrity Center motto, when I was there, Spanky had a different motto, but the Celebrity Center motto was, real celebrities deserve the best in staff and service and image. So our job was to make everyone who was a celebrity feel loved and important and, the best. And then as soon as they left the room, we spoke to each other and said, oh God, that guy's such a dick. Like, I can't even believe he's here. This is just so stupid. And we would, have our discussions about how dumb they were and all this other stuff, because we needed to make ourselves feel better, because of course these people come in and they're getting plates of huge food and we're giving them all this stuff. Meanwhile, we're on beans and rice and sleeping 5 hours a night while we're doing all these things, and white gloving, which means literally you're cleaning things from top to bottom and you use a white glove to make sure that there's no dust. And we would have to do that. If Tom Cruise came, we would find, God help us if Tom Cruise was showing up unannounced, but we would usually find out 3 days beforehand if he was going to drop by to bring someone, and we would clean the entire, 8 floors of Celebrity Center, including the basement, top to bottom, and stay up all 3 nights until the whole thing looked brand new, with paint, with new carpets, new upholstery, new whatever, new uniforms. People would get makeovers. If you were told, before the gala, we would get told there were lists that would be read at muster for the people who were fat, and you were told to be on a diet, and you were, fat shamed in front of the whole crew. We had people who were not allowed to be in certain sections of the gala because they were not nice looking. They were put behind the lines. So only certain people were allowed to even interact with actual celebrities, because you had to be good looking.
Obviously, that wasn't the
Yeah.
case when I was there.
Our uniforms were strict. If you didn't have makeup on as a woman, you got a report written on you. And if you got too many of those reports, you got a security check or lower conditions. I mean, if you didn't have the proper pantyhose on, the right color pantyhose, you got a report. If your shirt was not ironed, or the dry cleaning you had to pay for yourself, by the way, on $37.50 a week. If your skirt was not dry cleaned, you got a report written on you. Things got so crazy that you couldn't even really work on trying to help people because you were so concerned with what was happening here. And I used to get in a ton of trouble because I did care about my students. I did care about not just the major celebrities, but just the people that were in there, the moms and dads who had kids, and people loved to bring their kids to Celebrity Center because they had a good time, I hope. I mean, sort of not, I don't know. It's bad to think that it was a good time and I contributed to people being in Scientology, and it's a guilt that weighs on me. But the evolution from where the celebrities came from, I think, still only stays the same, in that the celebrities were desired because what we were told, they can reach so many people with their message. Like someone like me, most people go, who are you? Why do I care what you have to say? But someone like Tom Cruise can just walk out of a room and say, emeralds are the greatest gem in the world, and all of a sudden emerald sales are out the roof. So that's what Scientology was, the Oprah effect. You get a car, and everybody's doing that kind of thing. So that never changed and still hasn't changed, which is why I think they're so desperate to hang on to John Travolta and Tom Cruise right now, because they don't have anyone else. There's nobody, if you think of all the other Kirstie Alley, I don't think anybody is like rushing to hear what she has to say about anything right now,
It's an amazing thing, excuse me for a second, it's that if this were any way, the way it's presented by the organization or the members themselves or those celebrities, there would be a line from here to Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Celebrities, big stars wanting to do this. Obviously, this is not the case. A lot of people walk in that door and out of that door. Even in our day, Baryshnikov, Rock Hudson, all these people came in and went out for various reasons, usually because they saw the ridiculousness of it. But there were people that were really good and mistreated, and sometimes they're just eccentric and fun, but we would get a lot of heat. Not at the time, they wanted us to develop a personal relationship. I became very close with Karen Black at that time, and she was one of the godparents of my daughter. And when I was pregnant with Vanessa, before I was in the RPF, and had to steal her away, she had a very extravagant and beautiful baby shower for me. She bought her a mahogany crib and that was filled and overflowing with gifts, and she was so kind and generous. When I had a very difficult labor, and she came every day to the Wilcox Hotel and cleaned my room and helped bathe me because I had a lot of damage as a result of a really bad delivery. And every day she did this. And then later, months later, a year later, whatever, when I'm being ComEv'd, they said it was a charge of using a post position to procure unusual favors. And you know what? I had nothing. I wasn't David Miscavige. I had nothing to offer her. She was kind because she was kind, and loving just because she was loving to me. And I didn't have any clout. I had nothing that I could use. This great post position, whatever it was, that she was just lovely to me, and I was nailed for various things. If Johnny was generous to me, or
always. If anybody gave you a gift,
oh my God,
immediate
you got
ethics.
nailed.
I got gifts all the time. I got a pair of shoes and a dictionary and some clothes, and somebody slipped me 100 once. Nobody found out about that, but I kept that. And every time, if somebody found out, like, oh, where'd you get those shoes from? Because everybody knows you don't have any money. Like, how do you have a brand new pair of Nikes? Like, oh, my mom bought them for me. Like, oh, okay, then that's, we'll have to talk to her about that, But yeah, every time, anytime someone was nice, or they gave, for God forbid, a celebrity gives you a hug in front of an executive, because then, like my most famous, most embarrassing story was I was word clearing Lisa Marie's daughter, Riley, who's now, supermodel actress, and she was about 9 or 10 at the time. And she was so lovely and just like the nicest little girl. And we finished up, and she said, "Can I have a piggyback ride?" And I thought, oh God, I don't, and she just gave me the little kid, look, and I thought, all right, I'm not gonna say no to that face because it's just too cute. So I said, all right, hop on, let's do this piggyback ride. And I'm giving her this horsey back ride in this private office up above the president's office. And I start jumping down the stairs. And as I'm jumping down the last 3 stairs, I'm in the air. And around the corner, here comes her mom with her RTC auditor. And I'm like, oh my God, my life is over. And I just sort of gingerly put Riley down and, give her a little pat on the head. And she's like, that was awesome. Mom, did you see me? I was jumping. And Lisa Marie's laughing. And the RTC auditor is trying to give me the stare, but she's laughing also, but trying to be and I just sort of skulked away, okay, I hope I'm not going to the RPF tomorrow for giving a piggyback ride.
Moments are, years ago, when Diana left New York for a while, and she was pursuing a music career, and she had an album released, and we did a listening party for her, which is when you play the album for various people in the industry, and we had it at the Beverly Hills Hotel. We got a public person to finance this. We had nose-to-nose grand pianos, Chick Corea on one, Herbie Hancock on another.
God.
We had catering, we had lobster and crab legs and every kind of food imaginable, and I was asked to invite various celebrities. So one of these people was Robin Williams, and when he was alive, so obviously. Diana, she comes in and Robin's there, so I have to introduce them. And I said, Robin, this is my friend Diana Hubbard, Diana Robin Williams. And he said, hello, and she extends her hand. he grabs her hand, and with that, in true Robin Williams form, he drops to his knees and goes, "I'm healed!" And oh my God, truly, the golden rod flashed before my eyes.
my
I was
God.
like, oh my God, I'm so I was just terrified. And then I look at Diana kind of holding my breath, and she starts to laugh, and I think, thank you, there is a God, because it could have so gone the other way.
Oh, man.
Because Diana, when I knew her earlier on, she was really off with their head, kind of, she was like one of the royal family. But she had lightened up so much, thank God. And Robin was hysterical, and then he invited her to his show, and so it all worked out fine. But boy, I went through one of those scared shitless moments.
The threat is real, because there was Beretta, who then did a murder. What was his name?
Mike.
Beretta? No.
Robert,
Not-
Michael Roberts?
no,
William Blake. Or
William Blake.
No.
Robert
no,
Blake.
Robert Blake.
Sorry.
Okay, so Robert Blake goes on The Tonight Show, and he starts ripping into Scientology. And Diana just happened to be watching the show. So she goes into like, who talked to Robin about about Scientology? And the name came up, the RPF, like that. And she had only
Was it Michael Roberts? He was on the show with him.
No, it wasn't Michael Roberts.
This
It
is
was
back when
Kathy
Sierra
Oswald.
members could watch TV.
It
So
was
that was
that was
something else
Yes,
too that we
that's
didn't
true.
have.
We had that. And right before you lost it, just so you know, the family, most of the kids were given birthday presents, big screen TVs by their dad.
Oh, no, I know. We had TVs when I first joined, and then one night security came through and said, "Do you have a TV?" And we were like, "Of course we have a TV. What do you think we're doing after Post? We're watching, late night stuff." "Oh, hand it over." Excuse me, what? "Oh yeah, you gotta bring that out." And they put them all down when we were still living at the Wilcox, that fancy
Fabulous
place.
Wilcox Hotel.
Yes.
Home of the half-pound cockroach.
Only 5 cockroaches per room. Only 5, yeah.
Okay, I
do the camera?
I
Or was
blocked
that like a
Steve's
whole
view the other day, so we'll give you the first question.
Thanks so much. So I heard Paul Haggis describe why he left because of the anti-gay position of Scientology. But yet, for me, I've always known they were homophobic and Hubbard hated gays. So how did the Celebrity Center handle that if he was not aware of their anti-gay position?
There were a great number of high-profile gay men in Scientology at that time. There was this guy, Angelo Danglia, who has a store. He's passed now, but he has a store still in Beverly Hills. He's a great designer. Brilliant man. Gay as a Christmas goose, but just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man, and brilliant. Mario Feniger, who was around forever and still is, and no one ever thought twice about his sexuality because everybody knew he had his partner there with him, this young man, and even high-profile auditors that we knew had affairs with various staff members.
There's a particular story. We're talking here about Johnny Goodbugger again. I interviewed John McMaster, who was the world's first real clear, and gay as a 9-bob note, as we used to say. And, evidently, man was gay. He used to travel with his own secretary. Fine, I don't care. But I had a phone call from a guy who was a Hollywood set designer, and he said, I was one of the first 10 clears, and he said, it's been a matter of interest to me for some years that 7 of the first 10 clears were gay. So
they had a name like
the queer clears.
Clears,
the
yeah,
queer clears.
yeah, because I know.
So and he said, why do you think that was? And I'm sort of, well, it could have been a bit easier to control you, as a matter of fact. I also, in talking to McMaster, by the way, he became the world's first real clear because one day, after he'd spent about 6 months going through these nonsensical goals, problems, masses, to be or not to be, think of being electrocuted, to be or not to be, see a light. After he'd done about 6 months of this, Hubbard walked in on him one day and said, you're clear now. And he said, what do you mean? He said, no, you're the first one, you're now clear. So that was how it used to be done back in the old days when Ron was in charge.
And when she was referring earlier to my definition of celebrity, we had like a tongue-in-cheek definition that said a celebrity is defined as any person whose bank account balance is equal to or greater than their technical estimate. That was celebrity defined in our book.
Okay, we'll do a next question right here.
Second thing is that how do they treat politicians? Especially, I heard that a lot of congressmen is shy away from talking about Dianetics and Scientology. So, is there any way they have a control or they have lured those politicians? And second thing is that what is the status of the Hubbard children?
Let's do that question first.
I'm sorry.
Politicians?
Politicians.
How are they
Politicians.
controlled?
Oh, money.
Well, in my day, because I was at CC, and so, I was used to having to court a number of politicians to create those prospects or control those areas. For Yvonne, we would bring them in, Senator Alex Garcia, Assemblyman Richard Alatorre, there was a whole bunch of people, and then we were told, no, you can't do this because this is a geo thing. You can't talk to these people. I'm getting married, and I have a whole bunch of these people coming to my wedding. And Heber Jensch, who was the president of the church and the husband of Yvonne, who was officiating my wedding, said, oh, we're going to do this. And I said, no, Heber, this is not a Div 6 event. This is my wedding. And he said, no, darling, it's a Div 7 event. And so we're going to do what we're going to do. So, okay. So it was very controlled. But we just created a lot of political allies at that time for the organization in my day. I don't know how it is now.
More recently, they call it safe pointing, and usually that involves some form of whining and dining, but they get, even though legally as a religion, they're never supposed to tell you who you can vote for or who you should be supporting in whatever kind of election, they will come into crew dining while you're eating your, gigantic meal of beans and rice and say, there's a so-and-so politician who we like, and we like him because, and they give you the list, and the other person who's running is bad because they're associated with Sykes, and they're possibly a secret CIA plant. But this person is sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, and this person is toxic waste. So they would get your vote for the few people that were registered to vote. They discouraged that later on because then you get called for jury duty and you have to miss work because they don't really believe Scientology is a religion, and you have to, most people don't pick you for a jury anyway if you say you're Scientologist, but yeah, that's good. Just say that if you want to get out of jury duty, apparently.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I'm a Scientologist.
Yeah, there you go. So that'll get you right out of there. But they would do that, and when they would bring the people in, we had the gala, or gala, however you want to pronounce it, every year, and that would be the big moment to kind of woo the very important people. You bring them in, it's a 5-star experience. They get to rub elbows with John Travolta and Tom Cruise and fight for food with Kirsty and all that kind of stuff. And listen, it's true. I'm not gonna lie. And they get to hobnob. It's like a fan moment. So they're like, oh, I'm important now. Look, I met John Travolta. I met Tom Cruise. They get their picture taken. And in those moments, it was fun to be a CIRG member at CC. You got to dress up. They bought gowns for us. They did our hair. We got all these things. And we got to hobnob with those people. And, we took secret photos of ourselves and stuff like that. And it was fun. And we got to eat sushi and shrimp and, real food. And we dined on the leftovers for a few days after all of those. But they use, again, still the celebrity power to influence those people, because let's face it, even politicians want to be more famous, and if they get their picture taken with someone like Tom Cruise, more people are going to notice them in the election, and they're going to get elected. But people like specifically Lee Baca, who just got indicted on a lot of charges, the former sheriff of Los Angeles County, was completely in the pocket of Celebrity Center. And that was why it was dangerous for us as CIRG members. I don't know at their time, but if you wanted to leave and you felt like, I want to get out of here, you couldn't go to the police really, or the sheriff, because they had been so safe pointed by Celebrity Center and the other organizations that they would just bring you back. They would just be like,
there is an invidious side to this, which is the infiltration of politics. So, you have Sonny Bono, of course, among the man who skied into a tree. But there are also, for example, Willie B. Wilson, whose name has not often been mentioned. He was an oil billionaire and a close friend of the Bush family. You then have Richard Rees. When Clinton was asked about Scientology, he said, I went to Oxford with a Scientologist.
Right.
And it seemed okay, that's Richard Rees. So you've got this other, don't bother to get elected. Also, there was a British MP, William Hamling. There was a Danish MP. There was a Dutch MP. There was a member of the House of Lords in Britain. the president of the Ukraine, so we are told. Prime Minister of the
Prime
Ukraine.
Minister,
we have an
sorry.
expert. But it's all to develop influence.
Yeah.
Second part is that, was the state of the Hubbard family members, I mean, their kids, were they in sort of celebrity, or they were just like a excess baggage?
Diana never pursued her musical career beyond that. She ended up going back in the Sea Org, sadly, because she's like Jesse said, she's a beautiful girl and quite talented.
And the only member of the Hubbard family still involved with
Yeah.
Scientology.
Yeah.
Hey, gang, I'm walking over to Tori, but in the 3 seconds to her, I'll ask, do you think Tom Cruise and John Travolta know about the dark side of
Yes.
their faith?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, but you elaborate a bit. Here's Tori. Is that all you want to say? Does Tom Cruise...
Tom Cruise absolutely knows about it. I don't know, I can't speak for John particularly, but Tom, when he would go to the gold base, everyone, first of all, whenever they're there, you're ordered to smile. You're ordered to, I know, were ordered to address Tom Cruise as sir.
Does he know that that's order, though?
Yeah, oh, yes, because he's BFFs with, David.
Yeah, but see, you could explain-
But Tom knows far more than John does, because John, whenever John came around, it was sort of people surrounding him, and he was just sort of shuttled from place to place, and he did whatever activity he was there to do, and then he was put in his car and he left.
Well,
Tom, on the other hand, was like cock of the walk. He knew what was happening, and
Yeah, but listen-
he took advantage of that.
Nora, he may think that's what he deserves. Does he know people are being... does he know about the RPF treatment, the whole? Does he know about people being...
None of the celebrities know directly about the RPF.
I think Johnny does.
I think they buy into the line that Mike Rinder used to, give, that it's a what did he call it? A retreat where executives go to, get their minds straight and whatever. And I can tell you, spending 3 years on the RPF, there is nothing retreaty about wearing steel-toed boots, black jeans and gray t-shirts, and running up and down, hundreds of flights of stairs, doing construction work 12 hours a day. I did lose a lot of weight. That was a fabulous diet, but I don't recommend it.
Okay,
Frank,
Tori's
do you
going to
want
have the
say
last
something
question, then we're going to have a
about
break.
John's knowledge of...
Oh, I just know that,
Well, he knew about you on the RPF.
yeah, he knew about me
Yeah.
on the RPF.
Yeah.
And I did talk to him when I was asked to go to Houston to recover him, because when I hit the skids, he disappeared. And he was told, because I saw in the folder during my comment, he was told, the DFP would like you to do the PTSSP course so that you can learn to recognize people like Spanky. And he said, ciao, and he left for a long time. And then when he was in Houston doing Urban Cowboy, and it had been a long time since I'd seen him, I'd left the Sea Org, I went to Houston to recover him and reg him, which I did.
Okay, here's the last question.
Wait,
Okay.
Tori and
Okay.
Nan has a question.
Hold it, Tori, then Nan.
Okay.
Okay, Tori,
Okay.
then I'll go to Nan. Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, because I was at Celebrity Center with the beginning with you guys and then all the way through. And I just wanted to, first of all, just say, in the early days, because you sound so different, right? And in the early days with Yvonne, there was a tremendous amount of inclusion. And once Yvonne died, it was tremendous amount of exclusion.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
and I want
Good
you
point,
guys,
honey.
someone to speak about when Yvonne died and the change that happened.
You guys
Well,
want to take that?
Yvonne, yes, well, Yvonne had, she had been moved from Celebrity Center, and we went to start something called the PR org. And it was there she started failing physically, and then prior to her passing, she went to Flag, finally.
And yeah.
And so then I get a call from Lizzie Gablehouse and said, oh, honey, if there was any way in the world I could be with you. And I thought, something's up. So she goes, but, some people are coming, and Nancy and Patrick are coming. So they arrive, and then I'm briefed that Yvonne has passed, and that we are now going to brief the celebrities one by one, like line them up and cave them in, and give their folder to a counselor who will help them through the loss.
Exactly, and the night that she died, Pat Walteri and myself were sent from Florida to LA, and our whole purpose was to beat the rumor line. We wanted people to be told, and that was from us, because we adored, and Pat Walteri worked with her forever, and we wanted people to be able to deal with this privately because she touched so many people. And so we first met with Spanky, and it was me and Patrick, and we went, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And it was then worked out that we were going to interview people in auditing rooms, small auditing rooms.
We're going to have all the field auditors come forth so they could help us with the flow of traffic.
Exactly. And so we lined up, we had one meeting and with all the field auditors, there must have been like 40, 50?
Yes.
Yeah, 40 or 50 auditors. And we just said, look, we can't give you the soft touch. We just have to tell you this is what's happened and we need your help. And so we had it set up. It was like a machine. Spanky and me, and we would take people in one at a time. Their folders were already ready, and we would talk with them.
And then hand their folder to an auditor.
Hand their folder to an auditor. And what was amazing for me, I don't know about for you, but after I really answered all their questions about Yvonne, they would then say, what about Quentin? And the thing is that
Quentin
was L. Ron Hubbard's son, who died.
Yeah, I didn't hear you say Quentin.
Quentin Hubbard, and no one spoke of it. So here we are telling them the truth, answering every single question they could possibly have about the death of Yvonne, and the first thing that comes up.
Excuse me, I wasn't told I could tell them the truth.
You
I
weren't?
never told them. I said, oh, Yvonne, you know how hard she worked, and she put probably 150 years on that 52-year-old body, and she just was tired, and I would just had to spin it, because I couldn't say, Yvonne died of a brain tumor. She had cancer, which is an evil thing because she probably had crimes. I couldn't tell them anything like that, so I just had to kind of do the soft shoe and just make it very palatable for them. And she had just expired, and like I said, line them up, cave them in, pass the folder over.
But the thing that I found interesting is on that mission, like she said, it was more to like Yvonne chose not to have treatment because she felt it would be easier to just come back, of course. And
Has she come back?
well,
Not
yeah.
in the room, okay.
L. Ron Hubbard.
A lot of people think even Janny, her daughter, has been told by 11 different people, I'm Yvonne.
I'm Yvonne, yeah. So it's a double-edged sword. But L. Ron Hubbard, when we did the final staff meeting, he sent a message down about Yvonne and making Celebrity Center a shrine for Yvonne, which her office was set aside for her for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't there, no office for her.
And then
don't even know
gone.
of Yvonne
I doubt
anymore.
they even have a picture of her.
No, there's no pictures of Yvonne, and the only people that mention her are people like Pamela Lancaster Johnson, who I think is still there, and a couple other people who actually worked right beside her and with her. And we would be like, Yvonne, why do we care about this lady? She's not here, who cares? That was because we had no knowledge. We didn't really know what she did. We didn't know, this is like a history lesson for me too, finding out all this stuff, because we didn't talk about that. We just only concentrated on,
On production.
making the $125,000 we had to make a week in order to get paid. That was the goal. So
And
that's all
Yvonne,
you thought about.
truly, hand to God, she would say, darling, so-and-so's coming, they're on tour with Tina Turner, and I need them gotten in session because they've had a hard time. Oh, sir, he doesn't have any money on account. She gets a little irate. Did I ask you if they had money on account? I didn't say, does he have money? I said, get him in session. I don't care if he has money. That's not what we're here for. We're here to help people. Oh, yes, sir, we'll take care of it. And that was Yvonne.
Okay, we'll go to the last question.
Okay, Dan has.
She could have started her own group, which would have been a better group.
And she was a threat to Hubbard because she was so popular.
Okay, Nan McLean, last question, then a break. And since we're a little over, let's come back at 3:25.
Okay.
And of course, that means we'll get here about 3:30. Okay, Nan McLean.
Spanky, you mentioned the urban cowboy.
Yes.
Can you tell me whether you knew at the time that Travolta was making that film that he was trying to get out of Scientology? And I'll give you my reason. I was in Los Angeles helping a client, and at the 6 o'clock news, they broadcast that on the set, real ammunition was used and lodged in the foot of an extra. And John Travolta was then scurried off to Clearwater. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I don't know about that incident. I know when I went, they were in production. I spent a couple days with Johnny, were in this rental property that the production had him put up in, and then he had me go to Pasadena, Texas, to that Gillies bar where he was shooting. You know, it had been so long since he'd even done Scientology, and I showed up with cookies and stuff and said, look, I have to tell you. And I was told, you have to tell them the truth, you have to tell them what happened to you. And I just felt nervous about doing that, so I said, you know, Johnny, we had one conversation on the phone when I was on the RPF, when I had to cancel seeing him. So I told him I can't talk to you, and he scolded me and yelled at me like no one had ever done. And he said, how can you allow them to do this to you? And what are you thinking? And where's the baby? And what's, you know, he was like really harsh. Well, that was our last conversation until fade to black and cut to a year and a half later when I was, or more, when I was in the Urban Cowboy set, and with Johnny. But I said, you know, John, I was specially selected to do this program, and I really thought it was so I could be better at helping you. But I found out I wasn't going that way, and I had to leave. And so I left this Oregon, and I didn't want to be away from the kids and and then I had to reg him. But I asked him, what's going on with you? I thought there was some big dark reason he was not involved, and he said, you weren't there. I just didn't have a terminal, and whatever. But he'd gone through so much trauma in that, not by my doing, but his mom had died, and he had all kinds of personal problems, and which is what got me to go to Houston. Is the person who helped me leave came to me and said, he's in trouble, Spanky, you have to go to him. And I said, I can't, because I was declared, and I thought, how could I do that? And I went to see him because I really wanted to help him and thought he was in trouble. And he was, I don't know, he didn't say anything about wanting to leave at all. So I don't know about that.
Okay, thanks. Listen,
Sure.
6 degrees of separation, you can be six degrees
only
connected
1
to anybody
degree here.
famous. Well, listen, I've never met Tom Cruise, but I've been in the same room with people who've met Tom Cruise and John Travolta. So let's all thank them for making us famous.